the maid noticed something impossible about the Mafia boss's blind daughter. The child drew perfect pictures of places she'd never been, described colors she'd never seen, and whispered a dead man's name in her sleep. What the maid discovered in the medical files made her blood run cold. The girl's blindness wasn't an accident. It was insurance. The iron gates of the Vescari estate didn't creak when they opened. They glided, silent and efficient, like everything else in Don Vescari's world. Marina pressed her sweaty palms against her thighs, trying to smooth the wrinkles from her cheap black dress. At 22, she'd cleaned apartments, scrubbed restaurant floors, even worked night shifts at a nursing home. But this was different. The Mercedes rolled through manicured gardens where even the shadows seemed calculated. 3 men in dark suits stood at intervals along the driveway, their eyes tracking the car like security cameras made of flesh. Marina's stomach twisted. The agency had told her the job paid triple the normal rate. They hadn't mentioned why. Miss Russo, the driver's voice was flat. No photographs. No phone calls from inside the house. No questions about the family. Understand? Marina nodded, though her mouth had gone dry. The estate loomed ahead, a modern fortress disguised as a villa, all glass and stone and money. As the car stopped, a woman in her 50s emerged from the entrance. Severe bun, press suit, eyes like a hawk evaluating prey. You're late, the woman said, though Marina had arrived exactly on time. I'm Signora Moretti, the head of household. The Don is particular about his daughter's care. You'll follow my instructions precisely. Of course, Marina's voice came out smaller than she'd intended. They walked through halls lined with art that probably cost more than Marina's entire neighborhood. Everything was pristine, cold, perfect, like a museum where nobody actually lived. Signora Moretti stopped at a heavy wooden door. The child is fragile. She's been through 6 caretakers in 2 years. The last one left without notice. She paused, her hand on the doorknob. Don't upset her. Don't ask about her condition. And whatever she says, she turned, her gaze sharp. Remember that she's a child with an active imagination. Nothing more. The warning felt like ice sliding down Marina's spine. The door opened. Bianca Vescari sat by the window in a pool of afternoon sunlight, her small frame almost swallowed by an oversized armchair. She wore a white dress that seemed to glow against her olive skin, her dark hair pulled back with a velvet ribbon. She looked like a porcelain doll, beautiful, delicate, and somehow wrong. Her eyes were open, but they were the color of milk, completely white, without iris or pupil. Marina had been told the girl was blind, but seeing it was different. Those eyes stared straight ahead, unseeing, yet somehow Marina felt exposed under their gaze. Bianca, Signora Moretti said softly. This is Marina. She'll be helping take care of you. The girl didn't move, didn't blink. For a long moment, Marina wondered if she'd even heard. Then, quietly, she smells like lavender soap. The cheap kind from the market on Via Torino. Marina's breath caught. She did buy her soap there. How could? Bianca has an excellent sense of smell, Signora Moretti said quickly. Too quickly. You'll prepare her afternoon tea now, Marina. Kitchen is downstairs. Everything is labeled. Marina was dismissed before she could speak. The kitchen was as immaculate as everything else. Marble counters, professional appliances, and a pantry that could feed 50 people. Marina found the tea service, hands trembling slightly as she arranged the cups. Through the window above the sink, she could see the greenhouse in the distance, its glass panels reflecting the late afternoon sun. 15 minutes later, she carried the tray upstairs. Signora Moretti had disappeared, leaving her alone with this strange child who knew too much about cheap soap. You can put it on the table beside me, Bianca said without turning her head. Not too close. I don't like the sound of porcelain scraping. Marina set the tray down carefully, studying the girl. Up close, she looked even younger than 11. Her hands were folded in her lap like a lady at a formal dinner, but there was something tense in her small shoulders. Would you like milk with your tea? Marina asked. No, just honey. 1 spoon. Marina prepared the cup and placed it in Bianca's waiting hands. The girl's fingers found the handle with perfect precision. No fumbling, no uncertainty. She sipped delicately, then set it down in exactly the same spot. The silence stretched. Marina felt like she should say something, but what did you say to a blind mafia boss's daughter in a house full of armed guards? Bianca spoke first. Do orchids bloom in the dark?
Marina blinked.
What? Orchids, the girl's milky eyes remained fixed on the window. Can they bloom without light? It seemed like a test, though Marina couldn't imagine why. Some species can, she said slowly. There are cave orchids in Asia that grow in complete darkness. They don't need photosynthesis. Interesting, Bianca tilted her head. I've seen them. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. You've seen them? Marina's voice was barely a whisper. In my dreams, Bianca's expression didn't change. They're beautiful. White petals with purple veins, growing on stone walls. There's water dripping somewhere nearby.
Echo sounds.
And they know my name. Marina's skin prickled. The girl spoke with such certainty, such detail.
Colors. Patterns. Sounds.
How did someone who'd been blind since birth dream in such vivid? Plants don't know names, Marina said carefully. For the first time, Bianca turned her face toward Marina. Those white eyes seemed to look through her, past her, into something Marina couldn't see. These ones do, Bianca whispered. They whisper it when I sleep. Over and over.
Carlo. Carlo. Carlo.
The cup in Marina's hand rattled against its saucer. That's not my name, Marina managed. I know, Bianca turned back to the window. It's his. Before Marina could ask who he was, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heavy boots. Signora Moretti's clipped voice giving orders. The moment shattered like glass. Bianca's face smoothed into a pleasant, blank mask. Thank you for the tea, Marina. You may go. Marina stood on shaking legs, gathering the tray with numb fingers. As she reached the door, Bianca spoke one last time, so softly Marina almost missed it. Don't go to the greenhouse after dark. The tiles remember everything. The door closed behind Marina with a soft click that sounded like a cell locking shut. Marina barely slept that night. Her room in the servants' quarter was small but comfortable, far nicer than her apartment in the city, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Bianca's milky stare and heard that whispered name.
Carlo. Carlo. Carlo.
By morning, she'd almost convinced herself it was nothing. Just a lonely child with an overactive imagination, like Signora Moretti had said. Blind children sometimes created elaborate fantasies to compensate for what they couldn't see. That had to be it. But the unease sitting in her chest wouldn't leave. At 8 o'clock sharp, Signora Moretti appeared at her door. The Don wants Bianca taken to the greenhouse this morning. She enjoys feeling the plants. Texture helps her understand the world. The woman's face was unreadable. You'll accompany her. Marina nodded, ignoring the flutter of anxiety in her stomach. Don't go to the greenhouse after dark, Bianca had said. Well, it was morning. Bright, safe morning. She found Bianca already waiting in the entrance hall, wearing a pale blue dress and white shoes. A guard stood nearby, massive, silent, his hand resting casually near his jacket where Marina was certain a gun hid. Good morning, Bianca, Marina said softly. The girl's head turned toward her voice. You didn't sleep well. I can hear it in your breathing, shallow, tired. Marina's forced smile faltered.
I've fine.
Should we go see the plants? Bianca's small hand found Marina's arm with unsettling accuracy. Her grip was light but steady as they walked through the back terrace and down the stone path toward the greenhouse. The guard followed 10 paces behind, his footsteps a constant reminder of where they were, what this family was. The greenhouse rose before them like a crystal palace, its glass panels catching the morning sun. Humidity rolled out when Marina opened the door, thick, warm air heavy with the scent of earth and growing things. Inside, rows of exotic plants created a jungle in miniature. Ferns with leaves as big as plates, flowering vines that twisted toward the ceiling, orchids in every color Marina could name, and some she couldn't. "It's beautiful," Marina breathed. "Is it?" Bianca stepped inside, releasing Marina's arm. "Describe it to me." Marina started to speak, but the words died in her throat. Bianca was walking forward with complete confidence, no hesitation, no careful shuffling. Her small feet navigated the stone path between plant beds as if she'd memorized every inch. She didn't reach out to feel her way. She didn't pause or stumble. She walked like someone who could see.
Bianca?
Marina hurried to catch up. "Slow down, you might." Bianca stopped so suddenly Marina almost collided with her. The girl stood perfectly still, her white eyes fixed on a spot 3 feet ahead. The stone path continued, lined with terracotta pots of blooming roses. Nothing seemed out of place. "Something used to be there," Bianca said quietly. Her small hand pointed with absolute precision.
A pot.
Blue ceramic with white cracks. It had gardenias. They smelled like weddings and funerals at the same time. Marina stared at the empty space. Just clean stone tile, swept and neat. "There's nothing there now, sweetheart." "I know," Bianca knelt down, her fingers touching the tiles. "But there was. Right here." Someone moved it fast, dragged it. You can still feel where the base scraped the stone. Marina crouched beside her. The tiles looked perfectly normal, but when she ran her fingers across the surface, she felt it, the faintest roughness, like something heavy had been dragged across recently. And there, in the grout line, a smudge of dark soil, still slightly damp. Her heart began to pound. "How did you know?" "The air is different where plants used to be," Bianca said simply. "And I've seen this spot before. In my dreams, there was blood mixed with the soil." The temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. "Bianca, that's not." Marina's voice cracked. She forced herself to sound calm, rational. "Dreams aren't real, honey. They're just your mind making stories." "Then why does the soil smell like iron?" Marina lifted her fingers to her nose. Beneath the earthy scent was something else, metallic, faint but unmistakable. She wiped her hand on her dress, fighting the urge to run. "What's going on here?" A sharp voice cut through the humid air. The guard had entered the greenhouse, his expression cold and alert. He looked at Bianca kneeling on the floor, at Marina's pale face, and his jaw tightened. "The young miss wanted to feel the plants," Marina said quickly, standing. Her legs felt weak. "We were just—" "The Dawn says it's time for the young miss to return inside." The guard's tone left no room for argument. He wasn't asking.
Now.
Bianca stood gracefully, brushing soil from her hands. As the guard took her arm, more firmly than necessary, she turned her blind eyes toward Marina. "The gardenias are in the incinerator now," she whispered. "But the pot is buried by the east wall, 3 feet down. If you dig, you'll find pieces. Some of them aren't ceramic." The guard pulled Bianca away, his grip tight on her small shoulder. Marina stood frozen among the orchids and ferns, her heart hammering against her ribs. Behind her, near the entrance, she heard the soft scrape of a shovel being moved. When she turned, a second guard stood there, watching her with flat, dangerous eyes. The message was clear. Stop looking.
Stop asking.
Stop thinking. But as Marina walked back toward the villa on trembling legs, one thought burned in her mind brighter than fear. What had they buried? Marina spent the rest of the day in a fog of anxiety. She served lunch, folded linens, organized the pantry, mindless tasks that kept her hands busy while her mind raced. The guards watched her more closely now. She felt their eyes tracking her movements through the villa, a constant weight on her shoulders. 3 feet down. Some of them aren't ceramic. What did that mean? What had Bianca seen in her dreams that made her say such things? By evening, Signora Moretti assigned her to help Bianca prepare for bed. Marina climbed the stairs with heavy steps, wondering what strange pronouncement the child would make tonight. The door to Bianca's room stood ajar, warm light spilling into the dark hallway.
Marina knocked softly. "Bianca?"
I'm here to help you get ready for bed. Come in, the girl's voice was lighter now, almost normal. Like their conversation in the greenhouse had never happened. The bedroom was enormous, twice the size of Marina's entire apartment back in Milan. A canopy bed dominated one side, draped in white silk. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes in Braille. A large window overlooked the gardens, now dark except for scattered security lights. Bianca sat at a small desk near the window, her hands moving across something on the surface. As Marina approached, she realized what it was: drawings. Dozens of them, scattered across the desk and pinned to a corkboard above it. Marina's breath caught. They weren't the simple, clumsy drawings of a blind child feeling her way through art. These were detailed, specific, impossible. Rendered in crayon with a child's hand but an artist's eye for detail. One showed a building, a warehouse, maybe, with a corrugated metal exterior and broken windows. The proportions were perfect. Another depicted a metal staircase, the kind of industrial fire escape you'd find in old factory districts. The crayon strokes captured the rust, the sharp angles, even the shadows. But the most disturbing drawing was pinned in the center of the board, a nighttime scene of neon lights reflecting off dark water. Pink and blue squiggles represented the neon, their reflections stretching down into black crayon that Marina understood was meant to be a canal or a river. In the corner, barely visible, was a sign. The letters were shaky but readable. Docks, Zone of 4.
Did you
Make these? Marina's voice came out as a whisper. Bianca's milky eyes turned toward her, but the girl's expression was unreadable. I dream them. Then I draw what I remember. But how? How can you? Marina stopped herself, but the question hung in the air anyway. How can you draw what you've never seen? Everyone asks that. Bianca's small fingers traced the edge of the warehouse drawing. The doctors, the specialists Papa brought from Switzerland. They show me shapes, ask me to describe them. They think I'm making it up, her voice dropped. Or that I'm not really blind. Marina knelt beside the desk, bringing herself to Bianca's eye level. The girl's white eyes stared through her, unseeing but somehow aware. What do you think? For a long moment, Bianca didn't answer. Then, I think I see things that haven't happened to me. Places I've never been. Sometimes I'm walking, but it's not my legs. Sometimes I'm scared, but it's not my fear. She paused, her small hands folding in her lap. It's like watching someone else's memories. A chill ran down Marina's spine. What do you mean? In my dreams, I'm taller. My hands are bigger. Man's hands. And I can see. Bianca's voice was barely audible. Colors are. They're like music. That's the only way I can explain it. Red feels warm, like the sun on my face. Blue feels cool, like water. I don't know how I know, but I do. Marina looked back at the drawings, her mind spinning. The detail, the perspective, the way the neon lights reflected off water. These weren't a child's imaginings. They were too specific, too real. The warehouse, Marina said carefully, pointing to the drawing, even though Bianca couldn't see. Have you been there?
No.
But he has.
Who?
The man whose eyes I have. The words hit Marina like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, nearly knocking over the desk chair. What did you say? Bianca remained calm, her expression serene. Papa doesn't know I understand. The doctors whisper when they think I can't hear. They talk about tissue compatibility, neural integration, rejection protocols. She tilted her head. I wasn't born blind, Marina. I was made blind. After they put his eyes in me. Marina's hands were shaking. This couldn't be real. This was insane. The fantasy of a traumatized child who'd been through too many surgeries, too many doctors, too much isolation. But the drawings? Bianca, that's not possible. Eyes don't work that way. You can't just. Not the whole eye, Bianca interrupted quietly. The nerves. Optic nerve tissue from a donor. I was 6 months old. Something was wrong with mine. They were dying. Papa found a donor. Her small fingers drummed against the desk. But the donor's memories came too, trapped in the cells. And sometimes, when I sleep, I see what he saw. Marina sank into the chair, her legs unable to hold her. Who is the donor? I don't know his name. Not his full name. Bianca reached out, her hand finding one of the drawings, the one with the neon lights. But in the dreams, people call him Carlo. And in the dreams, her voice broke, just slightly. In the dreams, he's always running, always scared. And it always ends the same way.
How?
Bianca's white eyes glistened with tears that couldn't fall, with orchids painted on a metal wall, and the sound of my father's voice saying, "Do it." Marina didn't sleep at all that night. She lay in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Bianca's words over and over. Optic nerve tissue from a donor. The donor's memories came too. It sounded like something from a horror movie, not real life. Cellular memory was fringe science at best, the kind of thing conspiracy theorists and tabloids obsessed over. But those drawings, that impossible knowledge, and the name, Carlo. By 3 a.m, Marina had made a decision. If she was going to stay in this house, if she was going to care for that strange, frightened child, she needed to know the truth. Even if the truth was dangerous. She slipped out of bed and dressed in the dark, pulling on black pants and a dark sweater. The servants' wing was quiet, everyone asleep behind closed doors. Marina crept down the hallway in her socks, avoiding the floorboards she'd learned creaked during her first days here. The laundry room was on the ground floor, at the back of the villa, where the staff handled the family's endless stream of expensive clothes. Marina had been there yesterday, sorting delicates with one of the other maids. She'd noticed something then. Guards occasionally left their jackets on hooks when they came in for coffee, picking them up later when their shifts changed. One jacket still hung there now, dark fabric barely visible in the dim emergency lighting. Marina's heart hammered as she approached it. This was insane. If they caught her.
Don't think about it.
Just move. She reached into the first pocket. Empty. The second held a phone. She left it untouched. The third contained a leather wallet, some cash, and... Her fingers touched paper. Folded papers, actually, tucked into an inner pocket. Marina pulled them out with trembling hands and moved to the small window where moonlight filtered through. She unfolded the documents carefully, squinting at the text. The header made her blood run cold. Vescari, Bianca, medical records, confidential. Her eyes raced down the page. Medical jargon filled most of it, terms she didn't understand, but certain phrases jumped out like knives. Experimental ocular nerve replacement. Age, 6 months. Donor tissue, adult male, 40 to 45 years. Excellent compatibility. Procedure, bilateral optic nerve excision and transplantation. Complications, patient's original nerve tissue showed no signs of degradation. Decision to proceed despite low medical necessity, approved by guardian. Marina read that line 3 times, her hands shaking so badly the paper rustled. No signs of degradation. Low medical necessity. Bianca's eyes hadn't been dying. The surgery hadn't been necessary. They'd cut out a healthy 6-month-old baby's optic nerves and replaced them with someone else's. On purpose. Marina flipped to the next page, her breathing shallow and fast. More medical notes, surgical procedures, post-operative care instructions. Then, at the bottom, a section labeled donor information. Most of it was redacted, thick black lines obscuring text, but a few details had escaped the censor's marker. Donor, adult male cause of death, redacted, tissue harvested, redacted, attending physician, Dr. Comi. Even with the letters blacked out, Marina could guess.
Dottore Carlo Monetti.
It had to be, but that didn't make sense. If he was the attending physician, why would he also be? She turned to the last page, and her world tilted. It was a grainy photograph, black and white, paper-clipped to the medical file. It showed 2 men standing outside what looked like a courthouse. One was younger, maybe in his 40s, wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase. His face was circled in red ink. Written below in hasty script, "Witness, eliminate." The second man in the photo, partially obscured but unmistakable, was Don Vescari. Younger, but definitely him. Same sharp features, same cold eyes. And the witness, the man circled in red. Marina flipped the photo over. On the back, in faded pen, Dr. Carlo Minetti, prosecution witness, Moscali trial, 2014. The pieces slammed together in her mind with horrible clarity. Dr. Minetti hadn't performed the surgery. He'd been the donor. A witness in a Mafia trial against Don Vescori's allies, maybe against Vescori himself. They'd killed him. And then, somehow, they'd taken his optic nerves and implanted them in Don Vescori's infant daughter.
But why?
Why would anyone do something so monstrous? Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Marina's heart stopped. She shoved the papers back into the jacket pocket, her fingers clumsy with panic. The footsteps grew louder, heavy boots on tile. A guard making his rounds. She looked around frantically. The laundry room had no other exit. She was trapped. The footsteps paused right outside the door. Marina dove behind a rolling cart stacked with fresh linens, pressing herself flat against the wall. Her pulse roared in her ears, so loud, she was certain the guard would hear it. The door opened. Light from the hallway cut across the floor in a yellow rectangle. The guard's shadow stretched long and dark. Anyone there? His voice was rough, suspicious. Marina held her breath, her lungs burning. Through a gap between sheets, she watched his boots step into the room. He moved slowly, scanning the space. His hand rested on his gun. He stopped in front of the jacket hook, reached out, grabbed his jacket. Marina squeezed her eyes shut, praying he wouldn't check the pockets, wouldn't notice they'd been disturbed. The jacket rustled as he shrugged it on. Then the footsteps retreated. The door closed. Darkness returned. Marina stayed hidden for another 10 minutes, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. When she finally crept back to her room, dawn was breaking over the estate's manicured gardens. She climbed into bed fully clothed and stared at the ceiling, seeing only one thing. A baby girl, 6 months old, having her eyes stolen so her father's secrets could die in the dark. Marina made it through the morning on autopilot. She prepared Bianca's breakfast, hands steady despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. She smiled when required, nodded at Signora Moretti's instructions, and avoided eye contact with every guard who passed. But inside, she was screaming. Every time she looked at Bianca's milky white eyes, she saw that medical file. No signs of degradation. Low medical necessity. A perfectly healthy baby, mutilated for reasons Marina still couldn't fully grasp. "You're quiet today," Bianca observed over her morning porridge. The girl ate delicately, each spoonful precise despite her blindness. "Something's wrong." "Just tired," Marina lied. "Didn't sleep well." "Neither did I." Bianca set down her spoon, her expression troubled. "I dreamed about the warehouse again. But this time I saw faces. There were 4 men. One of them was begging. He kept saying he had a daughter, that she needed him, her small hands clenched into fists. They shot him anyway." Marina's stomach turned. "Bianca, maybe you shouldn't." The man who was begging looked like the doctor in the painting downstairs. The one in Papa's study. "Do you know which one I mean?" Marina did know. She'd dusted that office twice. Among the austere furnishings and expensive art, there was one photograph on the desk, Don Vescori shaking hands with another man at some formal event. She'd assumed it was a business associate. "I know the one," Marina whispered. "That's him. That's Carlo." Bianca's voice dropped to barely audible. "That's whose eyes I have." Before Marina could respond, Signora Moretti swept into the dining room, her face pinched with tension.
"Marina."
"The Don wants to see you in his study." Immediately, the world seemed to tilt. Marina's mouth went dry. "Why?" "He doesn't explain himself to me, and he certainly won't explain himself to you." Signora Moretti's eyes held a warning. "Don't keep him waiting." Marina followed on numb legs, her mind racing. "He knows. Someone saw you in the laundry room. You're dead. You're dead. You're." The study was on the 2nd floor, behind double doors of dark wood. Signora Moretti knocked once, then pushed them open without waiting for an answer. "The girl, Don Vescari. Leave us." The doors closed with a soft click that sounded like a coffin ceiling. Don Vescari sat behind a massive mahogany desk, his back to a window overlooking the estate. He was in his early 50s, handsome in a cold, predatory way. Silver touched his temples. His suit probably cost more than Marina earned in a year. And his eyes, dark, intelligent, completely devoid of warmth, studied her like a scientist examining an insect. "Sit." He gestured to a leather chair facing the desk. Marina sat, her hands gripping the armrests to stop them from shaking. Don Vescari didn't speak immediately. He lit a cigarette with a heavy silver lighter, took a long drag, and exhaled smoke toward the ceiling. The silence stretched, deliberate and suffocating. "You've been with us almost a week now," he finally said. His voice was smooth, cultured. "How are you finding the position?"
"It's fine, sir."
"Thank you. My daughter seems to like you." "That's rare." He tapped ash into a crystal tray. "She's a sensitive child. Difficult to manage. The last caretaker lasted only 3 weeks before she decided to leave." The way he said "decided" made Marina's skin crawl. "Bianca is wonderful," Marina said carefully. "She's very bright."
"Yes."
"She is." Don Vescari leaned back in his chair, studying her through the cigarette smoke. "She says peculiar things sometimes."
"Dreams."
"Fantasies." "I hope they haven't troubled you." Marina's heart hammered. "She has an active imagination." "Exactly," he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Children who spend too much time alone create elaborate stories. It's natural. Harmless." He leaned forward suddenly, his gaze sharpening. "As long as no one encourages these stories. As long as no one starts believing they're real." The threat was clear as broken glass. "I understand, sir. Do you?" He stubbed out his cigarette with deliberate force. "Let me be very clear, Marina. My daughter underwent experimental medical procedures as an infant. Life-saving procedures. Complex surgeries that even the best doctors in Milan said were impossible." He stood, walking around the desk with predatory grace. "There were complications. Side effects. Strange neural responses that the specialists couldn't fully explain." He stopped directly in front of her chair, looking down. Marina forced herself not to shrink back. "Bianca sometimes experiences what the doctors call cellular echo patterns, false memories. Phantom sensations. Her brain creating narratives to explain stimuli it doesn't understand." His voice was perfectly calm, perfectly reasonable. "None of it is real. You understand this, yes?" "Yes, sir." "Good." He returned to his desk, pulling open a drawer. He removed a document. Marina recognized it as her employment contract and placed it on the desk between them. "Your contract includes several important clauses. Confidentiality.
Non disclosure.
No unauthorized communication about family matters." He flipped to the last page, where Marina's signature sat in blue ink. "The penalty for violating these terms is severe. Not just termination. Legal action. Criminal charges for attempted extortion, blackmail, slander." He looked up. "Do you know what happens to people who try to damage my family's reputation, Marina?" Marina's throat was too tight to speak. She shook her head. "They disappear." He said it simply, factually, like commenting on the weather. "No police investigation. No news coverage. They simply cease to exist. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" "Yes, sir." "Excellent." He closed the contract and returned it to the drawer. "You seem like a smart girl. Smart enough to recognize a good situation when you have it. This job pays well. Very well. Enough to support your mother, help with her medical bills. It would be a shame to lose that." Marina's blood turned to ice. Her mother's chemotherapy treatments, the mounting hospital debt, she'd never mentioned them to anyone here. How did he? Of course he knew. Don Vescari knew everything. "My daughter needs stability," he continued. "Routine. Someone who won't fill her head with nonsense about memories that aren't hers, witnesses who don't exist, orchids in warehouses." His smile was a knife wrapped in silk. "You're going to be that person, aren't you?" "Yes, sir." Then we understand each other. He pulled out another cigarette. You may go. And Marina? Don't go snooping through things that don't concern you. Guards' jackets, for instance. Medical files. Computer records. He lit the cigarette, his eyes never leaving hers. Curiosity is dangerous in a house like this. Marina stood on trembling legs, her face burning. He knew. He'd known all along. Oh, and Marina? She paused at the door. My daughter mentioned the greenhouse tiles to you. The missing pot. He exhaled smoke slowly. That pot contained a rat. A very large rat that died in the roots. We had it removed and the plant destroyed. Nothing more sinister than vermin control. His smile was pleasant, paternal even. This estate is very old. Rats get in everywhere. Best not to go digging around looking for them. You might not like what you find.
Marina fled.
For 2 days, Marina kept her head down. She did exactly what was asked and nothing more. She avoided eye contact with guards, didn't ask questions, and when Bianca mentioned her dreams, Marina changed the subject quickly. Rats in the greenhouse. Cellular echo patterns. None of it is real. She repeated Don Vescari's words like a mantra, trying to make herself believe them.
She needed this job. Her mother needed this job.
And people who asked too many questions in the Vescari household didn't just get fired, they disappeared. But the images haunted her. That medical file. The photograph of Dr. Minetti with a red circle around his face. Witness. Eliminate. And Bianca's drawings, so detailed and specific they couldn't possibly come from a blind child's imagination. On the 3rd day, Bianca changed everything. It was late afternoon, the sun casting long shadows across the manicured lawns. Marina was in Bianca's room, organizing books on the shelves, when the girl spoke suddenly from her position by the window. I want to go outside. Walk with me.
Marina hesitated.
It's almost dinner time. Maybe after. Now, please. Bianca's voice was strange, tense, urgent. I need to go now. Something in her tone made Marina's skin prickle. Are you all right? I had another dream during my nap. I need to check something. Bianca stood, her small hands clenched at her sides. Please, Marina. Before it fades, against her better judgment, against every survival instinct screaming at her to refuse, Marina agreed. She informed Signora Moretti they were taking an evening walk. The older woman frowned but nodded, gesturing to a guard who immediately fell into step behind them. They exited through the terrace. Bianca took Marina's arm, but her grip was tight, almost painful. She walked quickly, pulling Marina along the gravel path that curved around the villa's east wing. Where are we going? Marina asked quietly. The driveway. The main 1-inch. Bianca's voice was barely a whisper. Something happened there. Something bad. The guard behind them said nothing, but Marina felt his presence like a weight on her back. They reached the circular driveway where Marina had first arrived. The smooth asphalt, the perfectly trimmed hedges, the elegant fountain at its center. Nothing looked disturbed. Nothing looked wrong. Bianca stopped walking so abruptly Marina nearly tripped. The girl stood frozen, her milky eyes fixed on empty air about 20 feet ahead. Here, Bianca whispered. Right here. What are you? There was screaming here. Bianca's face had gone pale. Last winter. December. It was snowing. Her free hand rose, pointing with eerie precision at a specific spot on the driveway. A truck. White van, actually. It stopped there because the gate wasn't opening fast enough. 3 men came from the trees. Marina's mouth went dry. Bianca, how could you possibly? Gunshots. 5 of them. Pop, 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 pop. Fast, like firecrackers. Bianca's voice was distant, dreamy, as if she were watching a movie only she could see. The driver tried to reverse. The tire screeched. You can still smell the rubber if you breathe deep. He swerved and hit the fountain edge. There, she pointed at the fountain's base. Marina looked. The marble was pristine, but when she stepped closer, she saw it, a small chip in the stone, recently patched with mortar that didn't quite match the original marble. Her heart began to race. The driver's window exploded. Bianca continued, her voice hollow. glass everywhere. He was begging. He said, I have the money, but they shot him anyway. Twice in the head. He stopped moving. The guard behind them shifted. Marina heard the leather of his jacket creak. They pulled him out of the van, Bianca said. Dragged him across the gravel. You can hear it in my dreams, the sound his shoes made. They took him toward the greenhouse. And one of them said, she paused, tilting her head as if listening to a voice only she could hear. He said, Don Vescari wants this one to disappear completely. No trace. That's enough, the guard's voice cut through the air like a blade. He stepped forward, his hand moving toward Bianca. The young miss needs to go inside.
Now.
But Marina couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Because she'd heard the story before, fragments of it, whispered between two guards in the kitchen 3 days ago when they thought no one was listening. A delivery that went wrong. An informant who tried to skim money. A problem that was handled last December. Bianca shouldn't know. She couldn't know. Unless. I can see it when I close my eyes, Bianca whispered, tears sliding down her pale cheeks. I'm standing in the trees, watching. My hands, his hands, are holding a gun. And I can see everything. The snow. The blood on the white van. The man's face when he realized no one was coming to help him. Inside. Now the guard grabbed Bianca's arm, rougher than necessary. He had a daughter, Bianca said, her voice breaking. He kept screaming about his daughter. Tell my daughter, I love her. Please tell my daughter. She choked on a sob. But no one told her. They just buried him with the gardenias and the broken pot, and... The guard clapped a hand over Bianca's mouth, lifting her bodily off the ground. She struggled, making muffled sounds of distress. Hey! Marina lunged forward. Don't hurt her. Another guard appeared from nowhere, blocking her path. His face was hard, expressionless. Miss Russo, you should return to your quarters. The Don will want to speak with you. I didn't do anything. She just...
Now.
Marina watched helplessly as they carried Bianca toward the villa, the girl's small form limp in the guard's arms. At the doorway, Bianca turned her blind eyes back toward Marina one last time, and mouthed 2 words, help me. Then she was gone, swallowed by the house. Marina stood alone on the driveway as evening shadows lengthened around her. She looked at the fountain, at the patched marble, at the spot where Bianca said a man had died. The gravel beneath her feet was smooth and perfectly raked. But when she looked closer, she saw it. Dark stains between the stones, faded but still visible if you knew where to look. Not rust.
Blood.
Marina didn't wait for Don Vescari to summon her. She knew what was coming, another warning, another threat, maybe worse. But she had tomorrow off, her first day off since starting at the estate, and she intended to use it. That night, she lay in bed fully dressed, listening to the house settle into silence. At 1 a.m, when even the guard's footsteps had grown infrequent, she slipped out through the servants' entrance. The security focused inward, on protecting the family. No one cared if the help left. She caught the first bus into Milan as dawn broke, watching the estate disappear behind her through grimy windows. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The central library opened at 8. Marina was waiting at the doors. She headed straight for the archive section, where newspapers were stored on microfiche and old computers. A bored librarian pointed her toward the machine without looking up from his phone. Marina started with the name, Dr. Carlo Minetti. The first search brought up dozens of results. She filtered by date, 11 years ago, around the time Bianca would have been an infant, and the list narrowed. The third result made her breath catch.
Star witness in Mascali trial disappears, prosecution case in Jeopardy il Corriere della Sera, marzo 15, 2014.
Marina clicked with trembling fingers. The article loaded, a grainy photograph appearing first. Dr. Carlo Minetti stared out from the screen, mid-40s, kind eyes, a slight smile. He wore a white coat and stood in what looked like a hospital corridor.
He looked
normal, human,
real.
Not just optic nerves in a blind girl's skull. Marina forced herself to read. Dr. Carlo Minetti, 43, a respected surgeon at San Rafael Hospital, has been reported missing by authorities. Dr. Manetti was scheduled to testify this week in the ongoing trial of alleged crime boss Vincent Mascali and 7 associates accused of orchestrating multiple murders between 2009 and 2013. Dr. Manetti witnessed a mass execution in an abandoned warehouse in Zona 4 in January 2013 when he was allegedly forced at gunpoint to treat a wounded gang member. According to pretrial testimony, Dr. Manetti observed the murder of 4 rival gang members by Mascali's organization. His testimony was considered crucial to the prosecution's case. With his disappearance, prosecutors fear the trial may collapse. Police are investigating, but have found no signs of foul play. Dr. Manetti's car was discovered abandoned near the Milano Central train station. His apartment showed no signs of struggle. Carlo would never just leave, said Dr. Elena Ricci, a colleague. He believed in doing the right thing, no matter the cost. If he's gone, something terrible has happened. Marina's vision blurred. She scrolled down, finding more articles. Mascali trial collapses after witness disappearance, March 30th, 2014. Missing doctor declared legally dead March 15th, 2021, 7 years after disappearance. Family of missing doctor holds memorial April 2nd, 2021. That article had a photo of an older woman, maybe 70, placing flowers at a memorial stone. The caption read, Anna Manetti, mother of missing surgeon, at memorial service. Marina clicked back to the original article, studying Dr. Manetti's face. Those kind eyes. That gentle smile. And in her mind, she heard Bianca's voice. I'm standing in the trees, watching. My hands are holding a gun. She searched for more. Mascali trial warehouse Zona 4. New results appeared. Zona 4 warehouse massacre detailed in court documents, January 2014. The article described in clinical detail what Dr. Manetti had witnessed. 4 men, rivals of the Mascali organization, executed in an abandoned warehouse near the canal docks. The warehouse had been used for smuggling operations. One of the victims had been shot multiple times, requiring medical attention for one of the executioners who was wounded in the crossfire. They'd forced Dr. Manetti, who'd been at a nearby clinic, to treat the wounded man. And he'd seen everything. The warehouse, since demolished, was notable for graffiti including orchid flowers spray-painted on the eastern wall, believed to be a territorial marker for a now-defunct smuggling operation. Marina's hands froze on the keyboard. Orchids. On a warehouse wall.
In Zona 4.
Exactly what Bianca had drawn. She scrolled frantically through more articles, piecing together the story. The Mascali trial had been huge, a major attempt to break organized crime's hold on Milan. And when their star witness vanished, the whole case fell apart. Mascali and his associates walked free on a technicality. But one name kept appearing in the periphery of articles, never directly accused but always present. Don Salvatore Vescari, identified as a business associate of the Mascali family. Marina searched Vescari-Mascali connection. Most results were blocked or scrubbed, but one old forum post from a conspiracy theory website remained. Everyone knows Vescari ordered the hit on that doctor. Mascali's people just did the work. No body was ever found because Vescari's too smart for that. Probably fed him to pigs or dissolved him in acid. That's what these people do. They erase problems. Marina felt sick. She printed everything. Every article, every photo, every scrap of information about Dr. Carlo Manetti. The librarian gave her a strange look when she collected the stack of papers, but said nothing. On the bus back, Marina spread the pages across her lap, studying them. Dr. Manetti's face stared up at her from multiple photographs. A good man. A brave man. A man who'd tried to do the right thing and had been erased for it. And then they'd taken his eyes, the eyes that had witnessed their crimes, and implanted them in Don Vescari's infant daughter.
Why?
The question burned in Marina's mind. Why put the eyes of your victim into your own child? Unless. The realization hit her like ice water. Insurance. If Dr. Manetti's body was never found, If no one could prove he was dead, the case could theoretically be reopened. But if his tissue, his DNA, was inside Don Vescary's daughter, under constant medical supervision, controlled completely, any investigation would lead directly to an innocent child. Untouchable. Protected. And if that child happened to develop strange memories, phantom recollections of things she shouldn't know. Cellular echo patterns. False memories. None of it is real. The doctors would explain it away. The Don would control the narrative. The perfect crime. The perfect cover. And Bianca, sweet, frightened Bianca, was living evidence of her father's murders, trapped in her own body with memories of the man whose death had made her father untouchable. Marina clutched the papers to her chest, her heart breaking. She had to help her. Somehow, even if it killed them both. Marina returned to the estate just before sunset, the printed articles hidden in her bag beneath a change of clothes. The guards at the gate waved her through, without interest. Just another servant returning from a day off. She went straight to her room, her mind racing with everything she'd learned. Dr. Carlo Minetti's kind face haunted her. A good man, murdered for witnessing evil. And now his memories lived on in a child who'd never asked for them, never deserved this nightmare. Marina knew what she had to do. She had to talk to Bianca. Really talk to her. Not as a caretaker following orders, but as someone who believed her. Someone who could help her understand what was happening inside her own head. But first she needed to be smart. She tucked the articles inside her mattress, hidden where a casual search wouldn't find them. Then she washed her face, changed into her uniform, and went to find dinner. Signora Moretti intercepted her in the hallway. The young miss has been asking for you all day. She's in her room. Refused to eat lunch. The woman's expression was pinched with disapproval. Whatever happened yesterday upset her greatly. The Don is displeased. Marina's stomach tightened. I'll go to her now. See that you calm her down. No more excitement. No more walks. Signora Moretti's eyes were hard. Just routine. Understand? Marina nodded and climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. She knocked softly on Bianca's door. It's Marina. Come in. The voice was small, tired. Bianca sat on her bed, still wearing her day clothes, her hair uncombed. Her milky eyes were red-rimmed, as if she'd been crying. She looked impossibly small against the large bed, impossibly fragile. Hey, Marina said softly, closing the door behind her. I heard you didn't eat lunch. I wasn't hungry. Bianca's hands twisted in her lap. They were angry at me. Papa's doctor came. He gave me medicine that made me sleep, but the dreams were worse. Louder. Marina sat carefully on the edge of the bed. What did you dream? For a long moment, Bianca didn't answer. Then, do you think I'm crazy? No, Marina's voice was firm. I don't think you're crazy at all. Everyone else does. The doctors, the specialists Papa brings from Switzerland and Germany. They do tests, brain scans, response measurements. They think I'm making it up for attention. A tear slid down her cheek. But I'm not. I swear I'm not. Marina's heart ached. She thought of the articles hidden in her room, of Dr. Minetti's face.
Bianca.
What if I told you, I believe you? What if I said I think your dreams are real? Bianca's head snapped up, her unseeing eyes wide. You do? I think. Marina chose her words carefully. I think the tissue transplanted into you when you were a baby might carry memories. Not full memories, but fragments. Impressions. And your brain is trying to make sense of them. Cellular memory, Bianca whispered. I read about it. In Braille books Papa doesn't know I have. The library sends them, and I hide them under my mattress. She leaned forward urgently. It's real, isn't it? People who get heart transplants sometimes dream about the donor's life. Kidney recipients develop new food preferences. It's documented. It's controversial, Marina admitted. Most scientists don't accept it, but there are cases. My case is proof. Bianca's small hands gripped Marina's. I see things I couldn't possibly know. The warehouse in Zona 4, I've never been there, but I can draw it perfectly. The orchids on the wall, the way the neon reflects off the canal water at night. The rust on the metal stairs. Her voice dropped to a whisper. The faces of the men who died there. Marina felt cold. You see their faces?
4 men.
I see them begging. I see them die. Bianca's grip tightened painfully. And I see whose hands are holding the gun. Not my hands.
His hands.
Carlo's hands. Marina's breath caught. Carlo was one of the killers.
No.
Bianca shook her head violently. Carlo was forced to watch. He was there to treat someone who was wounded, one of the bad men. They made him help, and then they made him watch, so he'd be too scared to tell anyone. Her voice broke.
But he told anyway. He was brave.
He testified. And that's why they killed him. How do you know all this? I don't just see what he saw. I feel what he felt. Bianca's tears flowed freely now. His fear. His guilt about the men he couldn't save. His terror when he realized they were coming for him. She pressed her palms against her eyes. The worst part is the end. I dream it over and over. The night they took him.
Marina's mouth was dry.
Tell me. Bianca took a shuddering breath. January.
Cold.
He was leaving the hospital late. There was an emergency surgery. He walked to his car in the parking garage. 3 men were waiting. Her voice became distant, recounting rather than remembering. They had guns. They put a hood over his head. Drove him somewhere. I can hear the car engine, smell the leather seats, feel the vibration of the road. Where did they take him? Back to the warehouse. The same one where he witnessed the murders. Bianca's body trembled. They wanted him to know. They wanted him to understand this was punishment. One of them said. She swallowed hard. You should have kept your mouth shut, doctor. Now you pay the price. Bianca, you don't have to. He begged. The words came out broken, anguished. He told them he had a mother who needed him. He offered the money. He promised he'd recant his testimony, leave the country, disappear. Bianca's face crumpled. But the man in charge, the one whose voice was calm and cold, said, Too late for that. You've already seen too much. Was it your father? Marina had to ask. Was Don Vescari there? I don't know. The memories are fragmented, flashes, not a complete picture. But I hear his voice sometimes, giving orders. Bianca grabbed Marina's hands again. They shot him. Not right away. They wanted him to suffer. They hurt him first. And then, at the end, when he was dying, her voice dropped to barely audible. Someone said, Take the eyes. Vescari wants the eyes. The room seemed to spin. They took his eyes while he was still alive. Marina felt bile rise in her throat. Almost dead. Maybe already gone. I can't tell where the pain stops and the darkness begins. Bianca was sobbing now. And then nothing. Just black. Until I woke up in a hospital crib, and the world was dark, and I've been dark ever since. Marina pulled the girl into her arms, holding her while she cried. Her mind reeled with the horror of it. They'd murdered Dr. Minetti and harvested his optic nerves for a 6-month-old baby. Not to save her, to hide evidence. To ensure their witness stayed silent forever. I'm so sorry, Marina whispered into Bianca's hair. I'm so sorry. I don't want his memories anymore, Bianca whimpered. I just want to be normal. I just want to see the world as me, not as a dead man. Marina held her tighter, her own tears falling now. Because she knew the terrible truth. Bianca could never be normal. She was evidence. She was insurance. She was her father's greatest protection and his darkest crime, all wrapped into one blind little girl who saw too much. 3 days passed. 3 days of Marina watching Bianca sink deeper into silence, barely eating, barely speaking. The girl spent hours sitting by her window, her milky eyes staring at nothing while tears tracked down her face. Marina couldn't bear it anymore. She knew it was dangerous, insane even. But Bianca needed closure, needed to understand that her memories were real, that she wasn't losing her mind. And Marina needed proof, something concrete she could use if things went wrong. On Thursday evening, during her scheduled break, Marina approached Antonio, the young gardener's nephew who made deliveries to the estate. She'd seen him smoking behind the kitchen, complaining about his uncle's strict rules. I need a favor, she said quietly, slipping him 200 euros, most of her first paycheck. And you can't tell anyone. Especially not the guards. Antonio's eyes widened at the money. What kind of favor? I need a car. Just for a few hours tonight. And I need you to create a distraction at the East Gate around midnight. He studied her face, then the money. This is about the little girl, isn't it? The blind one. Marina's heart raced. Why would you say that? My uncle talks. Says she's cursed. Says she knows things she shouldn't. He pocketed the money.
Midnight.
East Gate. I'll set off some fireworks in the woods. Make them think poachers are out there. You'll have maybe 20 minutes before they realize it's nothing. That's all I need. At 11:30, Marina crept to Bianca's room. The girl was awake, sitting in bed with her hands folded in her lap, as if she'd been expecting this. We're going out, Marina whispered. To the warehouse. The real 1-inch. Bianca's breath hitched. Are you sure? You need to see it. To understand your memories are real, not madness. Marina helped her into dark clothes, a jacket, soft shoes. Can you be very quiet? Yes, Bianca's voice was small but determined. I want to go. I need to know. They slipped down the servants' stairs, avoiding the main corridors where guards patrolled. Marina's heart hammered against her ribs as they crossed through the kitchen and out the back service door. Antonio's car, an old Fiat, waited in the shadows beyond the garden wall. At midnight exactly, fireworks exploded in the eastern woods. Shouts erupted from the guardhouse. Marina grabbed Bianca's hand and ran. They made it to the car as guards rushed toward the disturbance. Marina's hands shook so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. Then they were moving, rolling down the service road with the headlights off until they reached the main road. We did it, Marina breathed, flicking on the lights. Bianca sat rigid in the passenger seat, her face pale. The warehouse is in Zona 4, near the canal docks. There's a blue sign. I can't read it in the memories, but it's shaped like a rectangle. Marina drove into Milan, following Bianca's fragmentary directions. The girl tilted her head at intersections, as if listening to voices Marina couldn't hear. Left here. No, wait, right. There's a chemical smell. They entered the industrial district near the canal, abandoned factories, graffitied walls, broken streetlights casting pools of sickly orange light. Marina's skin crawled. This was exactly how Bianca had drawn it. Stop, Bianca's hand shot out. We're close. I can feel it. Marina parked on a deserted side street. The canal stretched ahead, black water reflecting distant neon signs. And there, between two collapsed buildings, stood a warehouse. Rusted metal siding, broken windows, keep-out signs weathered to illegibility. On the eastern wall, barely visible in the darkness, were faded spray-painted orchids. Marina's blood turned to ice.
Bianca.
That's it, the girl's voice was hollow. That's where he died. They approached slowly, Marina guiding Bianca over cracked pavement and debris. The warehouse door hung open, one hinge broken. Inside was darkness and the smell of rust, old concrete, and something else, something organic and rotten. Marina pulled out her phone, using the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a vast, empty space. Concrete floors stained with oil, and God knew what else. Metal beams overhead.
Graffiti avaibara, tafs, territorial markers, cruda drawings.
And on the far wall the orchids. Dozens of them, painted in fading purple and white. Bianca took 3 steps inside and collapsed.
Bianca.
Marina dropped beside her. The girl was conscious but trembling violently, her hands pressed against her temples. It's too much, Bianca gasped. Too loud. All of it at once. Her body went rigid. Her milky eyes rolled back. And then she began to speak in a voice that wasn't quite her own. Deeper, masculine, thick with terror. Please, I have a mother. She's 72. She needs her medicine. I'm all she has. Marina's blood froze. I'll leave Italy. I'll never testify. I'll say I lied. Please, please don't. Bianca's small body convulsed. She turned her head toward the back corner of the warehouse, the movement sharp and unnatural.
No.
No, not there. Please, not there. She screamed. The sound ripped through the empty warehouse, echoing off metal and concrete. Marina grabbed her, holding tight as Bianca thrashed and screamed words that made no sense. Medical terms, please in different languages, prayers Marina had never heard. Then, suddenly, silence. Bianca went limp in Marina's arms.
Bianca? Bianca.
The girl's eyes fluttered open. When she spoke, her voice was her own again, small and broken. He's here. Part of him is still here. What do you mean? They didn't take all of him. Bianca's hand lifted, pointing with impossible precision to the back corner where her phantom self had screamed. They left something.
A piece.
Buried shallow, under the concrete. Marina stared at the corner. In her phone's light, she could see the floor there was different. Newer concrete, poorly patched, the color slightly off from the surrounding area. They came back later, Bianca whispered. After they took what Papa needed. They dumped the rest here and poured concrete over it.
Quick work.
Sloppy. Marina felt sick. We should go. We shouldn't be here. Wait, Bianca struggled to her feet, swaying. She moved toward the orchids on the wall, her steps uncertain. Marina rushed to support her. Bianca's hands found the graffiti, fingers tracing the painted petals. And then she spoke, her voice clear and strong. His name was Carlo Minetti. He was 43 years old. He liked classical music and terrible action movies. He collected rare orchids because his daughter. She stopped, confused. No, not daughter.
Niece.
His niece loved them. Bianca, how do you know? He was a good man who made one mistake. He believed the law would protect him. Tears streamed down Bianca's face. And my father killed him for it. Used him. Put pieces of him inside me so I'd be evidence of the crime and insurance against discovery all at once. She turned her blind eyes toward Marina, and in that moment, she looked far older than 11. My father's greatest weapon isn't guns or money or fear. It's me, a broken little girl who sees his sins but can never speak them without destroying herself. Behind them, tires screeched on pavement.
Car doors slammed.
Heavy footsteps running. Marina's heart stopped.
No. 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 No.
Flashlight beams cut through the darkness. Guards poured through the warehouse entrance, at least 5 of them, all armed, and walking calmly behind them, his expression cold as death. Don Vescari. The guards surrounded them within seconds, guns drawn but pointed at the ground. Professional. Controlled. Waiting for orders. Don Vescari walked through the warehouse like he owned it, which, Marina realized with sinking dread, he probably did. His expensive shoes clicked against the stained concrete. He didn't look angry. That was somehow worse. Bianca, his voice was soft. Almost gentle. Come here, princess. Bianca didn't move. She stood pressed against the wall with the painted orchids, her small body trembling. How did you find us? I always know where you are, he gestured to one of the guards, who stepped forward and opened his palm. A small electronic device blinked with a tiny red light. Your shoes. The heel. I've had trackers in all your clothing since you were 4 years old. He glanced at Marina, his eyes dead and cold. Did you really think you could take my daughter out of my house without me knowing? Marina's legs felt like water. I just wanted to help her. Help her? Don Vescari's laugh was bitter. By bringing her here? To this place. He looked around the warehouse with something almost like nostalgia. I suppose I should have had it demolished years ago. But I'm sentimental about certain things. He walked toward the painted orchids, running his fingers over them exactly, as Bianca had done. Carlo did these, you know. Before, he smiled at the memory. We held him here for 3 days before the end. He was an artist, liked to draw to calm his nerves. One of my men gave him spray paint as a joke. Paint something pretty, doctor. Make your tomb beautiful. Don Vescari's smile widened. He painted flowers. Even knowing he was going to die, he painted flowers. Marina felt bile rise in her throat. Bianca's voice was barely a whisper.
Why?
Why what, princess? Why did you put his eyes in me? Bianca's hands clenched into fists. I wasn't sick. The medical file said my nerves were healthy.
You did it anyway.
Why? For a long moment, Don Vescari said nothing. He stood with his back to them, staring at the orchids. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of confession. Because I had no choice. He turned, and Marina saw something unexpected in his face. Not cruelty, but exhaustion. The Mascali trial was going to destroy everything. 15 years of work, of building an empire, all because this one doctor decided to be a hero. He pointed at the back corner where Bianca had sensed the burial site. Carlos saw things no civilian should ever see. And then he testified. Put everything at risk. So you killed him, Marina said. Of course I killed him, Don Vescari said it like stating the weather. But killing him wasn't enough. His testimony was already on record. His DNA was in the system. If his body was found, even years later, it could be linked to that night, to this warehouse. To me, he lit a cigarette with steady hands. I needed insurance. Something that would make any investigation impossible to pursue. So you put his tissue inside your own daughter, Marina breathed. Made her into evidence. Made her into protection. Don Vescari's eyes moved to Bianca. If anyone ever found Carlos' DNA, in medical databases, in random testing, it would trace back to you, princess. To a little girl who received life-saving transplants. Legitimate medical procedures.
Documented.
Legal. But I wasn't dying. Bianca's voice cracked. You made me blind for this. You were 6 months old. You wouldn't remember sight anyway. His tone was almost defensive. And the procedure worked. Your body accepted the tissue perfectly. Better than any of the specialists predicted. The memories, Marina said suddenly, understanding flooding through her. You didn't know about the memories. Don Vescari's jaw tightened.
No.
That was unexpected. The doctors called it impossible. Cellular memory is pseudoscience, they said. But Bianca started having dreams when she was 4 years old. Nightmares about things she couldn't possibly know. About the warehouse, Bianca whispered. About the murders. About him. I brought in specialists from everywhere.
Geneva.
London. Tokyo. Don Vescari took a long drag on his cigarette. They did tests, scans, treatments. Most said it was just childhood imagination. A few suggested the neural tissue might carry trace electromagnetic patterns, memory echoes stored at the cellular level. No one could explain it definitively. And you couldn't remove the tissue, Marina said, because then she'd be blind forever. And because removing donor tissue from a child would raise questions. Investigations. Don Vescari's smile was grim. The perfect insurance became a perfect prison. For both of us. He walked toward Bianca, who pressed harder against the wall. He knelt in front of her, bringing himself to her eye level. When he spoke, his voice was softer than Marina had ever heard it. I never wanted to hurt you, Bianca. You must believe that. Everything I did was to protect our family. To keep you safe, keep you provided for. Safe. Bianca's laugh was sharp, broken. I see murders in my sleep. I feel a dead man's fear. I'm blind because you needed a hiding place for evidence. Tears streamed down her face. You made me into a grave, Papa. A living grave. Don Vescari's face hardened. He stood, the moment of softness vanishing. You're my daughter. That's all you need to be. I'm Carlo Manetti's tomb, Bianca said quietly. That's what I'll always be. The silence stretched, broken only by water dripping somewhere in the darkness. Finally, Don Vescari turned to Marina. You've seen too much. Heard too much. You understand what that means. Marina's heart stopped. Please.
Papa, no.
Bianca lurched forward, grabbing her father's arm. Don't hurt her. She was trying to help me. Please. Don Vescari looked down at his daughter, then at Marina. For a long moment he said nothing. Marina could see him calculating, weighing options, deciding fates. Get them both in the car, he finally said to the guards. We're going home. As rough hands grabbed Marina's arms, pulling her toward the exit, She looked back at the painted orchids on the wall. In the flashlight beams, they almost looked real. Almost beautiful. A memorial to a good man, spray-painted in the place he died. And his killer's daughter, blind and haunted, carrying his memories like stones in her heart. The ride back to the estate was silent as a funeral. Marina sat in one SUV, hands zip-tied, wedged between two guards. Through the window, she watched the second vehicle following close behind, Bianca and Don Vescari inside, separated by glass and more than a decade of lies. Marina's mind raced. This is it. He's going to kill me, make me disappear like all the others. She thought of her mother, waiting for the money Marina sent home each week. Would anyone even tell her what happened to her daughter? The gates of the Vescari estate opened like the mouth of a beast. They pulled Marina from the car and marched her toward the villa. She expected to be taken to the basement, some dark room where problems were eliminated. Instead, they brought her to Don Vescari's study and shoved her into the same leather chair where she'd received her first warning. "Wait here," one guard said, positioning himself by the door. Marina waited, her heart hammering, her wrists aching from the plastic restraints. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Don Vescari entered alone, looking exhausted. He poured himself a drink, whiskey neat, and drank it in one swallow. Then he poured another and sat behind his desk. "My daughter is hysterical," he said quietly, "threatening to hurt herself if I harm you. Screaming about justice and guilt and sins of the father." He stared at the amber liquid in his glass. "She's never defied me before. Not like this." Marina said nothing. What could she say? "You've ruined her," Don Vescari continued. "Filled her head with ideas about her memories being real, about Carlo Manetti being some kind of martyr. Before you came, she was manageable, obedient." His eyes met Marina's, cold and evaluating. "Now she's dangerous." "She was always dangerous," Marina said, surprising herself with her boldness. "You just didn't want to see it. You put a murdered man's memories inside her and hoped she'd stay quiet forever. But the truth doesn't stay buried, Don Vescari. Not even when you bury it in a child." His hand tightened on the glass. For a moment, Marina thought he might throw it at her. Instead, he set it down carefully and leaned back in his chair. "What would you have me do?" His voice was almost curious. "Confess? Turn myself in?" The statute of limitations on Manetti's murder expired years ago. And with no body, no weapon, no witnesses, there's no case. Only my daughter's nightmares, which any lawyer would dismiss as psychological trauma from childhood surgeries. "So, I'm free to go?" Marina didn't believe it for a second. "No," Don Vescari smiled without humor. "You're free to choose. I can make you disappear, cleanly, quietly. No one will ever find you. Your mother will receive a letter saying you left Italy for a job abroad. Very generous severance." He paused. "Or you stay. You continue as Bianca's caretaker. You sign new contracts with enhanced confidentiality clauses. And you help me manage my daughter's condition." "Manage her condition?" Marina's voice rose. "You mean keep her compliant? Keep her silent?" "I mean keep her alive." Don Vescari's face was suddenly fierce. "You think I'm the only threat to her? There are people, business rivals, old enemies, prosecutors who never gave up on the Mascali case, who would love to find evidence against me. If they learned what Bianca is, what she carries inside her," he shook his head, "they'd use her, interrogate her, maybe even cut her open to prove she has Carlo's DNA." Marina felt cold. She hadn't considered that. "The only way Bianca stays safe is if she stays quiet," Don Vescari said. "And the only way she stays quiet is if someone she trusts helps her accept that her memories are just neurological misfires. Meaningless static." His eyes bored into Marina's. "She trusts you. So I need you to lie to her, to protect her." Marina looked down at her bound wrists. "And if I refuse both options?" "Then you've already made your choice." His tone was flat, final. Before Marina could respond, the study door burst open. Bianca stood in the doorway, her hair wild, her face flushed. She dressed herself, badly, buttons misaligned, one shoe missing. But she stood straight, her milky eyes blazing with something Marina had never seen before. Fury. Let her go, Papa. Don Vescari stood. Bianca, this doesn't concern.
Let
Her. Go. Bianca walked forward, her hands outstretched until they found the edge of the desk. Or I walk out that door and tell the first police officer I find everything I know. Every memory. Every detail. Let them dismiss it as nightmares, but I'll keep talking. To prosecutors, to journalists, to anyone who'll listen. No one will believe you. Maybe not. Bianca's smile was sharp, too old for her face. But they'll investigate. They'll test my DNA. They'll find Carlo's tissue inside me, and wanna know why. They'll dig up that warehouse. And even if they can't prove murder, they'll destroy you with questions. The room fell silent. Don Vescari stared at his daughter, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. Marina saw the moment he understood. The little blind girl he'd controlled for 11 years was gone. Something else stood in her place. You destroy yourself to hurt me, he said softly. I destroy myself to free myself. Bianca's voice didn't waver. I'm tired of being your insurance policy. I'm tired of being afraid. I want to live, Papa. Really live. And I can't do that as long as Marina's life is threatened, as long as the truth is buried, as long as we pretend I'm just a blind girl with nightmares. She turned her unseeing eyes toward where Marina sat. But I'm not just a blind girl.
I'm Carlo Monetti's witness.
The only witness who survived. And if you hurt Marina, I'll make sure everyone knows it. Don Vescari looked between his daughter and Marina. Marina watched, calculations running behind his eyes. Threats, options, outcomes. Finally, he reached across the desk and picked up a letter opener. Marina flinched, but he merely used it to cut her zip ties. Go to your room, Bianca. Not until...
Marina stays.
Unharmed. You have my word. His voice was weary. Now go. Please. Bianca hesitated, then nodded. As she turned to leave, she paused. I want to go to the greenhouse tomorrow. With Marina.
Why?
Because Carlo loved orchids. And I think, her voice softened, I think if I'm going to carry his memories, I should honor them, not hide from them. She left before he could respond. Marina rubbed her wrists, looking at Don Vescari. He suddenly looked older, the lines on his face deeper. My daughter is growing up, he said quietly. And I'm terrified of what she'll become. Good, Marina thought. You should be. The morning sun broke through clouds as Marina and Bianca walked the stone path to the greenhouse. 3 days had passed since the warehouse. 3 days of tense silence in the villa, guards watching Marina's every move, Don Vescari brooding in his study behind closed doors. But something had shifted. Bianca moved differently now, her steps more confident. She demanded changes, new doctors, ones she approved of, access to files about her surgeries, permission to eat meals with the family instead of isolated in her room. And Don Vescari, incredibly, had agreed to all of it. Are you nervous? Marina asked as they approached the greenhouse's glass doors. Yes, Bianca's hand tightened on Marina's arm. But I need to do this. Carlo loved this place. I can feel it in the memories. They're softer here. Gentler. Inside, the humid air wrapped around them like a warm embrace. The orchids were in full bloom, whites and purples and pinks, their delicate petals catching the filtered sunlight. Marina had learned their names over the past days. Phalaenopsis, Cattleya, Dendrobium. Living art, each one unique. Bianca released Marina's arm and walked forward alone, her hands outstretched. She found a potted orchid, white with purple veins, the same kind she described from her dreams, and her fingers traced the petals with infinite gentleness. He had one like this in his apartment, she whispered. His niece gave it to him for his 40th birthday. He kept it by the window where it could get morning sun. Marina watched, her throat tight. Can you see it? I mean, really see it? Not exactly. But Bianca tilted her head, her milky eyes reflecting the greenhouse light. Colors are starting to come through. Not images, but sensations. The white feels cool, like silk. The purple feels warm, like music sounds. She stood there for a long moment, breathing in the orchid's faint scent. Then something remarkable happened. Her eyes flickered. Just for a second, a shadow passed across those milky surfaces, a hint of darkness, a suggestion of definition.
Marina, Bianca breathed.
I think I saw something. Just a flash, but... Marina's heart raced. What did you see?
Light.
Real light, not just the warmth I usually feel. And shapes. Blurry, but there Bianca's voice filled with wonder and terror. Is it possible? Could the nerves be healing? I don't know. We'd need to. The doctor said it was impossible. Bianca turned toward Marina's voice, and again, that flicker crossed her eyes. They said the donor tissue was too old, too damaged. That I'd be blind forever. Maybe they were wrong. Marina knelt beside her. Or maybe your brain is finally learning to interpret the signals. Neuroplasticity, the brain rewiring itself. Bianca's hands trembled against the flower petals. If I can see. If I can really see. She didn't finish the sentence, but Marina understood. If Bianca could see, she'd no longer be just the blind daughter, the protected secret. She'd be something else entirely. They heard footsteps on the path outside. Don Vescari appeared in the doorway, his figure backlit by morning sun. He looked smaller somehow, less imposing than before.
Bianca.
We have guests for lunch. You should prepare. I'm staying here. Bianca didn't turn toward him. The orchids help. The memories are clearer here, but they don't hurt as much. Don Vescari stepped inside, his shoes clicking on the tile floor. You can't spend your life in a greenhouse. Why not? You spent my life building prisons finally. Bianca turned to face him. A prison of blindness. A prison of secrets. A prison of fear. I protected you. You protected yourself, but Bianca's voice wasn't angry, just tired. I understand that now. You did terrible things, and you used me to hide them. But Papa, she paused, and something shifted in her expression. I don't want revenge. I don't want to destroy you. I just want to live. Don Vescari stared at his daughter. What are you saying? I'm saying I'll keep your secrets. Carlo's memories, the warehouse, all of it. I'll bury it. Bianca's small hands clenched. But in return, you give me something. What? Everything. Bianca's milky eyes fixed on where her father stood with eerie precision. You teach me the business. All of it. The legitimate operations, and the other kind. You introduce me to your associates. You train me to understand money, power, leverage. Marina's breath caught. Don Vescari looked stunned. You're 11 years old. I'm 11 years old with the memories of a murdered witness in my head. Bianca's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I've seen things no child should see. I know how your world works. I've watched murders through dead eyes. You can unbreak me, Papa. But you can use what you've made me into. Use you how? Your enemies think I'm weak. Blind, fragile, sheltered. A smile played at Bianca's lips. Let them keep thinking that. But behind closed doors you teach me. And when I'm older, when I'm ready, she stepped forward, and again that flicker passed through her eyes. I'll be your greatest weapon. Not because I'm blind, but because I see more than anyone. The greenhouse fell silent except for the soft drip of the irrigation system. Don Vescari studied his daughter with something between horror and admiration. You're serious. Completely. Bianca reached up, touching her father's face, finding it with that uncanny accuracy she possessed. You made me into evidence of your crimes. Let me become the guardian of your legacy instead. I'll protect what you've built. And maybe, someday, I'll make it into something better. Better, Don Vescari repeated softly. Legitimate.
Clean.
Legal. Bianca's hand dropped. Carlo's memories taught me something. The violence, the fear, the killing, it all ends badly. Even for the ones who win. But power, real power, comes from building things that last. She turned back to the orchids. These flowers have survived for thousands of years. Not through strength, but through adaptation. Don Vescari was quiet for a long moment. Then, you want to adapt the family business. I want to evolve it. Bianca touched another orchid, her fingers gentle. But first, I need to see, really see, not just Carlo's memories, but the world as it is now. You'll hire the best doctors. The ones who do experimental treatments. Whatever it takes. And if you regain your sight, then I'll finally look you in the eye, Papa, and tell you I forgive you. Bianca's voice cracked slightly. Because someone has to break the cycle. And it might as well be me. 1 week later, Marina stood in the family dining hall, watching. Bianca sat at the long table, her posture perfect, while Don Vescari's 3 most trusted associates presented reports on shipping operations. The girl listened intently, asking questions that revealed an understanding far beyond her years. The men shifted uncomfortably and used to explaining themselves to a child. But they answered. Because Don Vescari had made it clear, his daughter was to be trained, educated, prepared. Bianca's vision hadn't fully returned, but shapes were becoming clearer each day. She could navigate rooms without assistance now, could distinguish light from shadow, could recognize faces as blurred forms. The doctors called it impossible. A miracle. Neural regeneration that shouldn't happen. But Marina understood the truth. Bianca was fighting for every bit of sight, pushing her damaged nerves to work through sheer willpower. Because she needed to see, needed to be ready. Marina, Bianca's voice cut through the business discussion. What do you think? Should we invest in the northern properties or focus on coastal developments? The men looked at Marina with surprise. The maid, being consulted on business matters? But Don Vescari nodded slightly, and Marina understood. This was her role now. Not just caretaker, but advisor. The one person Bianca trusted completely. Coastal, Marina said carefully. Climate change will make coastal real estate increasingly valuable. But ensure flood insurance and build on elevated land.
Bianca smiled.
Exactly what I was thinking. See, Papa? Marina understands long-term planning. Don Vescari watched from the head of the table, his expression unreadable. His greatest weapon, he'd once said, wouldn't be soldiers. He'd been more right than he knew. As the meeting concluded and the men filed out, Bianca remained seated, her fingers tracing patterns on the polished wood. Don Vescari approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. You're remarkable, he said quietly. Terrifying, but remarkable. I learned from the best. Bianca turned her face up toward his, and in the afternoon light, Marina could see color returning to those once milky eyes, hints of brown, flecks of gold. Or maybe from the worst. I'm still deciding which you are. Don Vescari laughed, a sound Marina had never heard from him, genuine if bitter. When you figure it out, let me know. As he left, Bianca turned toward where Marina stood by the window. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? Using what he made me into? Marina thought of the warehouse, the painted orchids, Dr. Carlo Manetti's kind face in old photographs. I think you're surviving. And maybe, in time, you'll transform something rotten into something that actually blooms. Bianca stood, walking toward the window without assistance. She pressed her hands against the glass, looking out at the estate gardens. I can almost see them, she whispered. The roses. Just red blurs, but I know they're roses. What will you do, Marina asked, when you can see everything? Bianca was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'll look at the world my father built. Really look at it. And then I'll decide what to keep and what to burn down. She smiled, and in that smile Marina saw the future. Not the blind child she'd met months ago, but something new. Something dangerous and brilliant and strange. A girl who carried a murdered man's eyes and refused to be blinded by them. A daughter of darkness learning to bloom in the light. And maybe, just maybe, a woman who would one day transform an empire of death into something that deserved to live. Outside, the orchids in the greenhouse swayed in the breeze, their petals catching the sun. Silent witnesses to impossible survival. Just like the girl who saw through borrowed eyes and learned to see herself.
The end.